In life, wouldn't that be great? What's your deadline? As quickly as possible. Well, based upon what metric? Based upon Philadelphia Union's metrics? Based upon the usual response of a bureaucracy? As quickly as possible could be a millennium. That's what we were told today. Now, part of the plan that I like, there are two things I don't like. Still no word of funding going to be an incentive. None of that. And fears on Twitter, and I think they're legit, that the Philadelphia Unions will extort here as much as we saw lost during COVID. Who's going to investigate that? But Josh Shapiro saying as quickly as possible. He said, I'm as competitive as anybody. That's the timeline, as quickly as possible. Well, then why can't you give us some deadline that you think is reasonable and then tell us if you exceed it? Now, the part that I like, as much as I understand it, and we had an inside source that might be listening that told us yesterday that they will, here's exactly what he said. They'll use specialized fill from Delco. It'll be trucked in continuously with a state police escort to build up and fill in the void. There will be 3 lanes in each direction, and a 24/7 camera will be in place for everyone to monitor the progress. Now, that I like. So they're kind of bypassing the exit there. I don't know how difficult that will be for people. They're going to fill this in, and they say special fill. I see people on Twitter already saying, what about rain like today and other things? How quickly will that start to sink? They're going to build the new bridge, if you will, I guess on the side, then somehow or another take this apart and reconnect it. And voila, we'll be done. Now, that's not a bad idea as far as expediting this. But the question is, why in the world do you hold a news conference to tell us about timelines and give people a sense of when things might be back to normal and then not give? Well, we don't want to give them to you. That's why. That's what we do. We don't want to give you any of that. Why should we have to give you that? So I think that's the first question. And I'm sure there are people out there, well, why do they have to give it to you, Dom? Who are you that they have to give it to? No, it's all of us. Don't they have to give us based upon what they know? They're the experts in this. Now, we told you about Atlanta. I don't know if anybody asked the question, did you talk with Georgia, Atlanta, what they did in 2017 around this as far as timelines? Is it necessary to give a projection of when you think this? Yes, I think it is. Not as quickly as possible. Give us the projection, because now Josh Shapiro will come rolling in. There'll be a ticker tape parade, and he'll say, look, we exceeded expectations. Well, there's no expectation here. And then they'll tell us, well, we're not experts. Well, all I can go by is what's happened in other situations and how long it's taken them. Now, there might be an expert or two out there. You never know. And I got a source, I'm sure will be texting me, et cetera. We told you this yesterday. But filling in the void, then building the permanent structure, and then replacing that doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. What's bad about this is the emphasis on just all this government stuff, as opposed to incentives, and as opposed to giving people a timeline. I mean, I'm looking at Bob Kelly's Twitter, Steve Keely's Twitter, and already you see people just taking down wooden barricades, put them to the side, and driving through areas where they're workers. They're not going to stop at that. I don't want martial law on that, but I don't want to see anybody get run over either. And to relieve some of this, and this is how progressives think, though, Dan, the Driscoll guy, the guy that's unseen up there, hides under his desk every time I say his name, the guy that won that special election.
Covered.
Yeah, who can't say anything about Mayfair and how bad it is. Driscoll now is running the ship. We got to have a subway now, extension to Northeast Philadelphia. I don't think Northeast Philadelphia necessarily wants that. They know the problems that SEPTA brings. You know what a kind of a dislocation that would be? What they'd have to shut down? Do you know the boondoggle? Do you know the billions it would cost with the unions and everything else? I'd put the price tag at 5 billion, 7 billion, any number of billions to extend the expressway to Northeast Philadelphia. And are people really going to take that, given what we know about SEPTA and given all the difficulties? Immediately, they are they're holding hearings. They want expedite the hearings on this. This is a good time. Never let a crisis go to waste. All right, here's a little bit of Shapiro. And then, so I don't forget it, Dan, because we have a lot on President Trump, too. I want to play KIP. I want to play the French woman. This exchange, they're nuts over transgenderism. They are just crazed beyond belief when you hear what she said to a reporter for the Catholic channel. All right, here's Josh Shapiro, what he said today.
I made it clear that my administration would lead a coordinated response to reopen I-95 safely and as efficiently as possible. From the first moments after this devastating fire, you have seen all levels of government, local, state, and federal, working together to get this done. I said we'd be all hands on deck, and I meant it. The Pennsylvania State Police and the Philadelphia Police work together seamlessly to keep motorists on I-95 and surface streets safe as the Philadelphia Fire Department courageously put out the fire. The Federal Highway Administration, the city, PECO, Philadelphia Water Department, local contractors, and so many others have provided PennDOT and Secretary Carroll's team with everything that they have needed thus far. From continuous
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Office-
Thank you, sir. Thank you. What's the timeline, sir? Thank you. You can't continue to prattle on. You know, today's a fine day. Today is Flag Day. What's the deadline? The American flag. Let's all stand and salute. Let me hand it off to Mike Carroll over here. Well, thank you, sir. I'm glad to be part of this coordinated effort. Government, government, government. Hey, guess what? Guess what? In private industry, what do they deal in, Dan? Deadlines, timelines. They don't say quickly as possible. I asked Dan for something. Yeah, I'll get you that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you want to guess? I'll get him a couple weeks from now, as soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as possible. What is as soon as possible? You're in government. You're in a Democrat city. You're the golden boy. I wonder if Josh Shapiro's 10-year-old son was consulted on this stand. I wonder if he said, that's right, go out there and tell them no capital punishment and as quickly as possible. My God. All right. Now, before we get to President Trump and the side question, Ed Durr's coming on today because these progressives in New Jersey have a bill in the Senate. He's got something else saying that librarians, as I understand it, they will determine the books that will be in a high school library of one sort or another. And you dare not take them out or limit them to age appropriate. The Federalists, I can't repeat some of the words. Well, they blank some of them. They have some of the main books in contention. And they dare President Biden, since he thinks this is hateful and cruel, to read on TV to the nation the content of some of these books for 9 and 10-year-olds. Just read it. Just read it on TV. Isn't that the test? If you can't read it on TV, then why are you calling it hateful to restrict this? So here is the French woman. Here is this communications guru.
Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yes. And I've never seen this guy before. He's pretty good. Just the look of incredulity on his face. He's from the Catholic channel. What is it? EWTN. And he's asking a question about, does the president think parents should told that their daughters could be hurt if they're playing against men or boys in female sports? Now, we've already had instances of this. It's one girl playing big-time volleyball, got clobbered, still has difficulties today. I think that was at the college level or senior year in high school. She's been out there in the news. Just as one example. Is this a harmful question? Listen to how they try to spin this question about men in women's sports.
I have my name right now. Good afternoon, Kareem.
Okay, good afternoon.
Just hours ago, Senator Tuberville tweeted, quote, having biological males in women's sports is unsafe, unfair, and wrong. And earlier this year, 72 elite female athletes signed an open letter saying forcing female athletes to compete against biological males is not only unfair, it is discriminatory and illegal. So in the light of this administration's proposed changes to Title IX, does the White House worry about the physical safety of females directly competing against males in sports?
So look, this is a complicated issue.
No,
It
it's
is.
not.
And there are a wide range of views, as you just laid out. The Department of Education proposed a rule that gives schools the flexibility to establish their own athletic policies while establishing guardrails to prevent discrimination against transgender kids. And so I also want to make clear that this is a proposed rule, and members of the public have the ability to provide comment as part of the rulemaking process. And so any additional questions that you may have of this proposed rule, certainly I would refer you to the Department of Education, but we do understand this is a complicated issue.
What would the president say to parents out there who have daughters, let's say in high school, for example, who are worried that their daughter may have to compete against a male, a person born male, and there could be directly in physical athletic competition and worry about their daughter's safety?
So look, what you're alluding to is basically saying that transgender kids are dangerous. It
What?
sounds like that's what you're saying. Well, you're saying
on.
you're
Really?
saying that their safety is at risk. Yeah, but you're laying out a broad example or explanation of what could potentially happen. A broad example explanation that is dangerous. That is a dangerous thing to say. That essentially transgender kids
Oh,
we're
come
talking about are
on.
dangerous, and so that's something that I have to call out. And that is irresponsible. I had just laid out how complicated this issue is. I had just laid out why it's complicated. And so anything that you have any additional questions, I refer you to the Department of Education. I'm going to move on. I know there are other people. Go ahead, Tam. Go ahead, Tam. Go ahead, Tam. No,
My God.
you can read your question in a transcript once you get it. Go ahead, Tam.
My God. She's an idiot, first of all. Just stone cold, shouldn't be in this job. But on top of it, it fits the Biden administration. And the idea that somehow or another he's talking about transgendered kids are going to harm you're saying they're harmful. This is the type of battle being fought. By now about the flasher, the transgendered influencer flashing her breast, his breast on the White House grounds, and they've had to cover up and move on to that. This is not going to be a winning issue. They're pushing the chips in because I guess they don't believe they have too much else. All right, 855-839-1210. Coming up, the Penny grand jury, we believe, sometime soon is going to come out with their verdict about whether to indict Penny or not. We'll bring you that. And with the biggest question, really, the biggest question coming out of President Trump and all that went down yesterday, we'll have that also. Flag Day, though, today. Our question revolves around that. And it's, I think it's a good angle on this. Give us a movie or TV show that inspires patriotism in you. I want to know the scene, though. Maybe even the words. Maybe even you might want to do it. I would say The Patriots.
Yeah.
Yeah, first time I saw The Patriot in theaters, it's one of those where people applaud it. And the scene that does it for me is when Gibson comes riding back with the handmade flag from his son who was killed by the British and rejoins and helps to lead them to victory. The sacrifice, the just will. Mel Gibson is really, really good in The Patriot. How about you, Dan?
I'll take off a friend of the station, Jack Carr's show, Terminal List over on
yes.
Amazon Prime. Fantastic show. I do highly recommend. And I'm going to take off a couple others just because I feel like these series, these moments might just,
Right.
win the day, and they get called in a lot. I'm going to take off Band of Brothers.
Right.
And I'm going to take off the opening scene from Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, without a doubt.
We talked
Yeah.
about that so much here. We don't need it to win another side question.
Yeah, no, that's the joker in the deck, as you always say. Think a little
Yes.
bit, your own special, not one that's you're just one that you like. And tell us the scene, the moment, what it does for you. 855-839-1210. That's how you get in with all that. As I said, coming up, what's the biggest question now coming out of this? Also, Andy McCarthy, who is certainly not pro-Trump, answers the question. The other side says you're just engaging in whataboutism when you say, what about Hillary, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden? And by the way, the clock is ticking, Andy McCarthy says. October 2023, I think it's October 8th. If Hunter Biden is not charged by then, Dan, the statute of limitations expires over what clearly is his gun crime, lying about his drug addiction to get a weapon. So the clock is ticking. We only have a couple months. If they don't indict by then, they can say statute of limitations, can't do anything. All right, 855.
And Dom, just want to say,
Yeah.
youtube.com/@1210WPHT, dining with Dom every day from noon until 1. Today, Dom, the discussion is centered around what is the design on my shirt?
Okay, I will have to peruse that a little bit more.
Someone
right?
says the magic mushrooms that John Fetterman was talking
Oh,
about.
boy, that's one of my favorite cuts of the week. Fetterman.
youtube.com/@1210WPHT.
Anybody eating mushrooms today? John Fetterman will be over to serve them. It's going to be a booming industry here. 855-839-1210. Good Wednesday, everyone. Welcome in. Dom Giordano Show, 855-839-1210. That's how you get on board. So the metric is as quickly as possible. Wow. Calling news conferences to say as quickly as possible. That was supposed to be what all their studying, what everything was about. But instead, that's where they're going to punt. What will people accept? Well, the media will try to shape that. I know how I'm shaped. It's already unacceptable what's going on here. I like their tactic of using this special fill, getting by with that. But even then, they don't seem to be saying it's a matter of 6 weeks to 2 months just to do the temporary thing. All those experts, all this stuff, and that's what we end up with. All right, get in on the side question too. Now, with President Trump, yesterday, PBS, just an absolute disgrace even for them. They ran a disclaimer under Trump's speech
Oh no.
warning rhetoric can promote people to commit acts of violence. Yes, they put that actually under a former president of the United States
Wow.
and leading contender now speaking. Rhetoric can prompt people to commit acts of, like a disclaimer now. MSNBC and CNN refused to cover it, saying it hurts their news operations. MS Rachel Maddow, it hurts their news operations whenever they put on
You know why it
falsehoods.
hurts their news operations, Dom?
Yes,
Because it tells the truth about what's going on, and it goes against their
Right.
narrative, their propaganda.
right. But this is the posturing that goes on here. Now, Joy Reid jumped in too. That's right. Joy Reid attacking Hispanic media. Now, that's part of what these AM radio things were about. A lot of Hispanic stations, news talk, some music thrown in, have started to go more conservative for a lot of reasons. Some of it could be the ownership. Some of it could be, you saw with President Trump, that restaurant where Trump went in, food for everybody. Immediately after that, people were acting as if God was there. He's broken through with Latino males, particularly, a bit with Latino females. And Joy Reid had to put a stop to that. They don't like it now. These are like white supremacists. Hispanic radio is pushing disinformation that Trump is being railroaded by Joe Biden.
The other thing is, on your point of disinformation, I checked in with my best source on this in Miami, who said that in language radio, Spanish language radio, which has been very effectively used by the Republican Party, it literally to flip Miami-Dade, it is now a red county, was on fire today. And this person's quote was, it was as worse as it's ever been. It was as bad as it's ever been, and worse. That they were on fire, pumping out the propaganda, the disinformation that Donald Trump is being railroaded by Joe Biden, the individual who embraced, physically put her arms around Donald Trump at Versailles, referred to the current president as a pedophile. And it is on 10 already in terms of disinformation. And that is just one county, just one piece.
Yeah, they cannot believe that maybe Trump has not broken through with suburban white women, or they're repelled by him at times, but he has broken through with Latinos, somewhat with African Americans, more than other Republicans. Plus, they're coming from countries, particularly Cuba, Venezuela, maybe some others, where they've seen communism in operation. Then there's the issue of things like transgenderism and what goes on in schools, and they don't like it, and they feel they're not going to be pushed around by these progressives, not like others that are afraid of them. They're going to take action, and action to them is, well, look at Trump. Trump is taking action.
Breaking news to our Democratic friends, but Latino people do indeed have eyes, ears, and a brain to think about what's going on out there and can make their own decisions.
Yep. And what they're deciding, I think, in large measure, now that's just one snapshot, the crowd with Trump yesterday, but we're seeing more and more of this. The most important question of the entire thing, I think, that people should be asking, why was this done at all? Weren't there other less draconian measures to take here? That's a legit question, to try to get Trump to comply with whatever it is that was so God almighty that they needed to comply. What else could have been done? A lot of other things. Did they have to go down this path? The other thing, that's critical here is what they did. And I didn't talk about this yesterday. We'll talk about it more today. Greg Jarrett, I have it starred for him, is going to be here from Fox News Channel at 1:30. They took away or they convoluted the attorney-client privilege here with Trump's lawyers. They used that. They bullied, they threatened around that this was that important. They used national security, et cetera. And when you get involved with the attorney-client privilege, there are exceptions to it. That's true. But they're usually pretty limited. You're willing to go to that level. This is just warfare. And all this will come out at his trial. All right, 855-839-1210. You get in. Don't forget the side question. Coming up, we're going to talk with State Senator Ed Durr. And I want to talk with him because I told you yesterday there are liberals and progressives, Phil Murphy and others. They're tired of what they're calling book banning in places like New Jersey. All it is school boards and parents saying, this stuff's not age appropriate. We're going to make it age appropriate. We were elected to make that decision. So what they're doing is they're essentially saying, as I read this bill, these school librarians in the American Library Association, they'll be the determinant of this. And some of these books, like Lawn Boy and things of that nature, are geared, they talk about 10-year-olds in it. You're talking about oral sex, stuff like that in graphic terms. Would these two state senators we'd have to bleep them. Would they dare read these at school board meetings and the like directly from these books? And if they can't read from them, then why in the world do they want to stop school districts from either, if you want to use the term, banning them or making them age appropriate? Well, Ed Durr is here with a bill of his own to push back against this. I think they stand a good chance of getting this passed. And if they do, then what will happen? Oh, there's going to be a banned books readathon this weekend. I just saw on Fox, along with Drag Queen Story Hours. Apparently, it's a big one. Yes, Saturday, June 17th, the Hoboken Library raffling off explicit kids' books like Gender Queer, This Book is Gay, and I told you, Lawn Boy. Lawn Boy seems to be a bestseller with these. Look, any number of these librarians are insidious, radical even, American Library Association. And they're behind pushing this. They just see that you're taking away the civil rights of a kid who's transgendered or thinks they are, might be, or gay, by exercising what you were elected to do as school board members.
I have a clip here that we pulled yesterday. It's not today's sheet, but I wanted to bring it back up. Senator Teresa Ruiz advocating for sexual content in libraries, but she's talking specifically about a book called Gender Queer, which shows pictures of individuals giving fellatio and other things that kids should not be seeing. But here's what she had to say about that.
Tweet: one Republican state senator said, quote, "I strongly disagree with the premise that all books, regardless of content, should or must be available in every public school without regard to age appropriateness. Middle school students shouldn't be reading 50 Shades of Grey or Gender Queer." Is she wrong?
That's something that the household has to take care of, right? I mean, our libraries are public spaces where people should go in and have freedom of thought and opportunities to explore and find themselves in different spaces. A parent has their independent right to exercise what they believe is appropriate for their own family.
My God. So it's back. They're trying, Dan, this woman is just, if she would never come on, if she does, she's a walking talking point. They're trying to do the same thing with puberty blockers, et cetera. They're trying to say that's a parental decision. These are the very people that butt in on every parental decision that you make that they don't like. Here, they're trying to tell us, well, the school has no stake in this. Everything, if they want to have Queer Eye and Lawn Boy and all that type of stuff, you got to go along with that. Well, who makes the determination on these books? It appears to be Ruiz and the school librarians. If they say it, then so be it. And that's it. Really? Yeah. The school boards and others have no say in this. All right, Ed Durr is with us, the state senator, famous state senator from South Jersey. He's got a different proposal, but I wanted to get him on to kind of talk about what is it like to be with this Zwicker and this Senator Ruiz saying nonsense. That's a parental decision. When does the left and progressives ever say that? Well, they don't. If you're saying the parent says, well, I don't think my kid ought to be engaged in this, at the age of 7, determining he's a different gender. Yeah, well, the kid is going to tell you, not the parent. That's next. First, let's talk Rhino Shield here for a moment. Our good friend John Gilgee of Rhino Shield reached out with a special offer just for my listeners. Book now and get 20% off your job. If you've been waiting for the perfect opportunity to beautify your home with a permanent solution to paint, this is it. Rhino Shield looks like paint, goes on like paint, but it never chips, cracks, or fades. It's ceramic coating. It's guaranteed for life. You never have to paint again. You'll be impressed as I am with both the product and the company and with John. It's perfect for any surface. Get the beauty of fresh paint, maintenance of vinyl, even insulate your home. For a project as important as your home, you want to work with someone you can trust. That's why I'm always happy to recommend John Gilgee, the local owner of Rhino Shield. He'll meet with you himself, explain the process. He's helped many listeners just like you upgrade the look and quality of their home. Call him right now to take advantage of this 20% offer just for my listeners. Visit myrhinoshield, RHINO.com, myrhinoshield.com, or call 844-RHINO-99, 844-RHINO-99.
Today, partly cloudy skies give way to a couple thunderstorms in the afternoon. Beneficial rain for most. Severe weather seems to stay off to the north, so good news there. Temperatures in the upper 70s. Overnight, skies clear, lower 60s for the overnight low. And then we go into your Thursday. It's warmer with a good amount of sunshine. Highs in the lower 80s. For Friday, lower 80s as well. We could see a couple thunderstorms as we head into the afternoon hours. Again, beneficial rain, a good thing into the first part of the weekend. It's dry and mainly sunny, lower 80s. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Justin Godnick.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Dom Giordano show. So, Dan, who said, well, why don't the libraries and schools just have Playboy
Yeah,
or
ipso
something like
facto
that?
says
Yeah.
if they refuse to budge, then,
Yeah.
Republicans, conservatives should say, hey, let's throw Playboys in the libraries and
Yeah,
then
why
see how they
not?
respond to that.
Yes. Oh, my God. Imagine, how do you deal with people like this every day? We just played you Senator Ruiz. This spin suddenly that parents should decide what books are in there. Instead of chocolate milk, how about beer in the cafeteria? The parent can make that decision.
What bothers me about that suggestion, I don't mean to go on a rant right here, but, coming up, hoping to have kids soon, I don't want my 8-year-old, 9-year-old child and him to be left out of his other friends who have parents who are now giving him books to read about child porn, and my kid's like asking me about horrible terms and such because his friends are aware of it because their parents.
Well, this Teresa Ruiz, libraries are sacred. So that means the librarian decides, right? Or who decides this? Let's go to State Senator Ed Durr. Senator, welcome back in. Thanks for joining us. And you have our prayers for dealing with logic like this every day.
Thank you, Dom. I appreciate it. It is hard not to be banging your head against the wall because, as you said, 1 minute she's saying, let them make the decision, but then on the other side of it, she doesn't want them to have the decision, as in the parent can't make a decision on having the COVID shot for their child. No, you must get the COVID shot, if you're going to go to school. We have restrictions in life in everything. There is age appropriate restrictions for everything: alcohol, cigarettes, driving a car, voting. Why is this is not a book ban by prohibiting these books, this type of literature being accessed by children? This is a age appropriate restriction to, and then to hold a gun at their heads, so to speak, by saying, well, if you act upon this, you'll lose funding. Jersey's already cutting school funding. Now you're going to threaten them with more funding cuts?
Yeah, it is stunning, but it would seem to me, better. You're actually in that body. They might have the votes on something like this. They kind of like this issue, particularly in New Jersey. Do they have the votes possibly in the Senate?
Well, it's always a good gauge if you see it come before a committee, then they have the votes. If it doesn't get through the committee, if they don't have the votes.
Okay.
And I have not heard it being presented in committee as of yet. This is just more of a talking point so far. But, if it gets into the education committee, I would believe that's the committee it's going to. Then I think they're thinking they have the votes. And that's when,
Yeah, you have a different proposal. You want an age rating system, Ed. So what's your proposal?
Well, I think that, it just like with movie theaters and stuff like that, you can't see an R-rated movie. So there's got to be some kind of limit when it comes to a child's age. We just don't, as you said, as Dan said, what if another parent thinks it's okay? Well, there are parents who are bad parents. So, should we just say, okay, whatever that parent decides is okay? No, because there has to be some responsibility in life with raising your child.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as soon as I see the name, I'm not sure if she's on your radar screen, Olga Pilates. She's the leader of the New Jersey chapter of Media Literacy Now, that law that got passed that puts this in the schools. And as I see it, it's just a one-sided thing to say it's disinformation if you happen to have Republican views.
Well, I'm always keeping an eye out for anything that attempts to, attack into, because I'm a strong advocate for the children and their protection and their rights. That's why I've had proposals of legislation for the Anti-Mutilation Act and for the school curriculum, because I believe, and I also am a firm believer in school choice. This is why I believe in school choice.
Absolutely.
So have the power to decide.
Now, it seems on some of these issues, Matt Rooney reported the other day, but various commentators, Ed Durr, reporting that they might be starting to, around the edges, pull back a little bit on some of this transgendered stuff, et cetera, because they're afraid this time of the election in 2023. You're up again. Tell us what you think is happening. Are you seeing them try to pretend, at least until the next election, they're a bit more moderate?
Well, and that's what I've tried to address and tell people. Just because you see them calming down a little bit, acting like they're hearing you, they're not hearing you. They are just waiting you out. They figure once they get through November, it will start up again. So do not be fooled by the slowdown right at this moment. They wouldn't have went in that direction if that's not their plan all along. Just because they've slowed down just means they're waiting until they get through this election, because they've seen what took place. 21 is not that far away from where we are now, and they know what could happen to them. If it happened once, it can happen again.
Exactly. Now, you're more of a known quantity this time. What's the campaign? Is it a referendum on what you've done? Because you've kept your promises. You've acted, I believe, in the manner that you were elected in that shocker.
Well, and that's exactly it. I'm not, counting on the anti vote coming out. It's more about myself and how I've done in the Senate and portrayed myself, that I continue to fight for the agendas that I've said, the conservative values. I'll be fighting for parents and for the children, and for, I'm still an advocate for, gun rights and personal freedoms. So these are the things that I continue to advocate for, and I always will. And so it's going to be more about me this time around. And we're pretty confident that we can get our message out there.
Exactly.
We did all right in the primary.
Absolutely. So, Ed Durr, where do people go to support you as we start to head toward that finish line? Where do they go?
You can find me at edthetrucker.com. And if you want to email me, ed4nj@yahoo.com. But edthetrucker.com pretty much has all my social media links and any information you need to find out.
Ed,
hey,
thank
Dom,
you.
just
Yes.
wanted to
Yeah,
point out that little doodle that you had me do has now become kind of my brain.
We love that. Yeah, so tell us.
I got it on different things.
Oh, we love that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Ed. We'll have to take a look at that. I'm glad you're branding.
Do you draw
with
the
that.
entire truck for all these signatures?
Yeah, well, Dan, just remember, send me an address. I want to send Dom and you guys some things, because I got a couple of things I put the drawing on. So
all right, I'll put you on hold right now. Ed.
I got his text. We'll text him back.
Okay, we'll text him. Ed, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on today.
All right, talk to you later, Dom. Take care.
State Senator Ed Durr. So they're not there yet with this, but notice the talking point of this Teresa Ruiz, that suddenly the parents will make this decision. They want bad parents. Yeah, Lawn Boy. Where's Lawn Boy? My kid's 5. He wants to read Lawn Boy. My God. 855-839-1210. You get on board. Coming up, a little bit of an update. We're watching the Penny case might come down today. The grand jury on that Alvin Bragg, the subway case. And Andy McCarthy, not a fan of President Trump, but he makes the point, and it's better when you have somebody who's not a fan making a point to support Trump, that whataboutism is what the law is about. Meaning, how can you go after Trump when you have Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and all these documents, all these emails, all the stuff that we've seen, and yet you're going to go to the wall on this documents case? That's all that it is. 855-839-1210. Let's talk about a great place to get help: technology, phones, and batteries. That would be two big stores, Roy and his trusted advisors. They have one, Batteries Plus Bulbs, Route 73 in Mount Laurel, and then the Northfield store on Tilton Road. Here's a review of what Roy and his team do and what they have there for you. Matt Pierce works with a fleet of vehicles. He said this is a great place to get any battery that you need or phone repairs. from cars to pickups, heavy-duty truck batteries. The owner really emphasizes customer service, and if they don't have your battery, typically the next day they'll get it. Nicer weather coming. A good time to get batteries there for boats, motorcycles, ATVs, and more. Customer service is always the key. Your phone, do not despair. Let them take a look at it. You're in business. You want an energy audit, or someone's telling you you're going to have to spend a lot of money with technology. Give them a call first. They are so solution-oriented and customer service-oriented. 856-638-0778. That's Batteries Plus Bulbs. 2 big stores, Mount Laurel and Northfield, at 856-638-0778. Dom Giordano Show. This just in. I saw it on Twitter, so it has to be true. Marlboro is adding puberty blockers to cigarettes to make it legal for kids. You heard me right, Marlboro.
Is that real?
Well, the
hilarious.
Babylon Bee says it is.
Oh, okay.
There you
Well,
go.
that's what I wanted,
It's the Babylon Bee. Pretty cool. I'm looking at the Marlboro package at the bottom. Puberty blocking formula. Yeah, I feel like smoking in the library here as I read Lawn Boy. I feel like having a Bud Light probably here in the line. Yeah, you should be able to do that. That should certainly be allowed. I'm looking at the lineup given for Jay-Z's Made in America, the thing that must go on no matter what. Oh, man, what's going to be happening if our little project on 95 is not done by then? Do you think they'll bring in every person in the world to finish it? Because Jay-Z's project, that takes precedence over everything. All right, we're going to be joined a little bit later on the show today by Greg Jarrett to break down some of the things now that are bubbling up legally around this. Here is Andy McCarthy, though, around President Trump. And as we know, not a fan of Trump overall. But he's making a point when people say Republicans are just engaging in whataboutism. Every time Trump is brought up, they say, well, what about Hillary? I mean, if you want to say they're different and you can distinguish it, every case is slightly different, but isn't the broad thrust of the case is there? Trump talking yesterday about Bill Clinton having 57 tapes in his sock drawer that were made that he took home with him and just avoided any kind of penalty with them. How about Hunter Biden? All right, so here is Andy McCarthy telling us the law at its core is whataboutism.
Yeah, well, when I hear this, what about, Martha, in the law, that's what the law is. Whataboutism is what the law is. We decide things based on precedent. We make laws, we make statutory law based on our experience. We gauge whether people are being treated fairly in a due process sense by comparing how they've been treated to how other people who've done analogous things have been treated. That's not whataboutism like it's a political hit point. That's what we do in the law. That's what it's about. And listening to your conversation about the Hunter Biden situation, one thing occurred to me. Everybody should have in mind October of 2023. Hunter Biden made a false statement in a federal gun form in October of 2018. You want to talk about like all these other cases, it would take a competent prosecutor and agent about 5 days, not 5 years, 5 days to put that case together.
Yeah.
They have had it for 5 years. The statute of limitations runs in October.
As Bill Barr said the other day, this is a simple.
All right, they already said the statute of limitation runs out in October. The point he's making here, which is the overall point, again, in fairness, every case, there are slight differences. No two cases are exactly alike. But Andy McCarthy making a point, it's analogous in broad terms. How is it that this guy is prosecuted? What is the metric that takes this out of the realm of previous presidents? Joe Biden as vice president, Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden. What is it here that takes it out of that realm? That's a question you have to answer again and again and again. It's not whataboutism. It's selective prosecution if you can't answer that. That's the biggest point here. And a guy like Andy McCarthy is a straight shooter on this, even though I know overall he's not a Trump fan. It makes the big point. Selective prosecution around this. Also, the raid on Mar-a-Lago. You're going to hear more from Greg Jarrett at 1:30 today about attorney-client privilege and how that was a hurdle here to the prosecutor. And did that need to be done? Or is that they're hell-bent to do this? They're going to throw aside just about anything. How much difference is there between Trump? Maybe Hillary Clinton is the best one on point, but overall, Hunter Biden, to Andy's point, still out there with the statute of limitation just months away. So which one happens first? The statute of limitations runs out and Hunter Biden is not indicted, or you can travel on 95. October 8th is the date on both. Imagine a guy standing up calling a news conference today, Shapiro, plotting this whole thing. making a big to-do about it, what we're going to do, and what's the timeline on this? That's what it was about. The timeline, as quickly as possible. That's going to be entered in the books. What's the deadline on this? As quickly as possible. Just say that wherever you are every day, just like the governor in a Democrat city, and that's fine. Motorists are going to be fine with this. It's going to be over as quickly as possible. Just hold on until then. 855-839-1210. Jump on, hit us on the side question today, Flag Day. That patriotic film TV show, The Moment, The Scene, that's what we're looking for to get your name in the hat. Talk Radio 1210.